Good evening and welcome back to Prime of Midlife. It's Thursday evening, it's almost Easter weekend. I am working tomorrow, but I am off on Monday. Look at that, wee sneaky day in there. Today I was reading an article. Now, we mainly are very big on the use cash. Quite happy to use cash as often as possible. However, there was an article I read today about a place in Australia, a company in Australia, who are asking people to please don't use cash. Normally, they're quite happy to do it. However, the company who transport their cash are almost in liquidation. And this supermarket, I think it's Coles, has said, please don't use cash if you can help it this weekend coming, because we're not using that company. We're not moving cash, because if they go into liquidation and they've got all their cash in the vans, we can't get it. And I was like, oh, never thought of that. Yeah, that's a bit of a thing. But on top of that, the other thing I read was an opinion piece from an insurance network. And they were talking about the problems getting contractors, getting people to actually do the work. And obviously I was talking to Mandy about it, and I was like, it seems to be a thing, because a few years ago, actually before I did the prepping because of the lorry drivers, but a few years ago, the lorries, lorry driving, etc., there was a lot of reports going about the majority of our lorry drivers are older, they're retiring. And then there was more legislation brought in that they had to do a specific test every year or something. I remember writing about that years ago. And a lot of the older ones, and they had to pay like a couple of grand to take this test. And the older ones are like, I'm not paying that. I'm struggling to keep my head above water here, and you want me to pay £2 to take a test to show you I can do what I've been doing for the last 40 years? No. So a lot of them took, well, not a lot, but a reasonable number took early retirement. And here in the UK, we filled the gaps with drivers from the EU. Then, of course, there was Brexit. And there was also, I have to say, the facilities available. So after Brexit, they were desperately trying to get lorry drivers over here. They were saying you didn't need, they'd do special visas for you and everything. But the European lorry drivers are like, why would I? Have you seen the facilities you've got in the UK for lorry drivers? Now, I have to say that, I am definitely, when Kathleen was younger, I was keeping a watchful eye on what sort of career do you want? Where are you going to be appreciated? Where is there money? And lorry driving was looking quite good, and she liked driving. But then I thought, small, blonde, female. And then I remembered when I was driving, when I did a lot of driving from one of my jobs, and I stopped at a couple of truck stops, and I remember going into the ladies' toilets where there was showers for the female lorry drivers, and it was basically concrete blocks that were painted white with a shower head. That was it. I mean, with stainless steel sinks. It was no more comfortable than fleeing the air. Yes, they could go in, they could get food, the seats were quite comfy, but I wouldn't be wanting to work and stay away from home 3 or 4 days, and that was the facilities I was getting. So, yeah. Then, of course, with COVID, etc., and there was the thing, again, lorry drivers, transportation was a problem. Now construction seems to be a problem. The figures I saw were that in the last year, 13% of construction companies closed. And that's because a lot of the guys are like my age. They don't want to be working. And also because a lot of the jobs are getting more particular. And nobody minds them being more particular, because we've all seen places, new builds just now, which are absolutely dreadful. There's been all the difficulties with construction materials that are not up to par, etc., etc. But what's happening now is companies are starting to nitpick to try and save themselves money. So they are demanding certain things, like they're asking contractors to have specific software. They must use this software. You know, if you're working for if you're subcontracted to a bigger firm or a network or something. So they want you to use their specific software. They want you to meet their service level agreements, which I have to say I take exception to. And certainly here in Scotland, where it's more rural, if you work for, say, a Scottish or national company and you're subcontracted out, and you're working in, say, a place called Aberfeldy. Let's say they're putting up new houses in Aberfeldy. And you get this job, and the guy's like, well, we gave you the job, 24 hours ago, you sent an email, so where's your pictures? Where have you been in the site visit? Now, I'll pretty much guarantee you that the contractor they're looking at is not from Aberfeldy. He's probably from at least 50 odd miles away. And yet they expect you to drop everything else and run up there within 24 hours of getting that email, because that's their service level agreement. They want to know that, they are the most important. And do you know who is the most important? The person who pays the bill on time. And at the moment, a lot of contractors are finding, especially with bigger companies, that they're not paying the bills on time. They're holding on to the money, which is actually against the law in this country to hold on to the money for a small snagging detail. If you build a house and it's, you're due this contractor £20,000, but you find out that the bit of vinyl in the kitchen, there's a tear in front of the sink, so you're like, well, I'm not paying you till it's finished. That's illegal in this country. That's too small a thing to hold back £20,000. But that's what's happening. There's a lot of big companies not paying on time. So therefore, there's a lot of people, as I say, my age, young men who started their own company, who did their apprenticeship, got their trade papers, and became qualified plumbers, gas engineers, joiners, floor layers, tilers, decorators, etc., etc. They're not staying in work anymore. They've had enough. And plus the fact it's a hard physical job. But also there's not that many people coming up wanting to be a tradesman. Apart from the fact that the apprenticeship wage is laughable. And certainly even if, in a lot of places, a lot of courses, you'll get people going in when they're older. An apprentice wage at the moment is just laughable, and there's certainly no older person with a family is going to go and change into apprenticeship, which would be absolutely brilliant if we could get 20, 25-year-olds going and doing an apprenticeship, once they've got their work head screwed on. It's not happening. There is going to be a severe shortage of trades. There already is a shortage of trades, but it's going to become severe because people coming up don't want to go into the trades, and the older trades are like, I'm done, I've been working, it's a physical job, I'm done in the middle. And the people in the sort of 40 to 60 age group have been working for years, and they're objecting to the big companies that they subcontract to starting to nitpick. So they will find other ways of doing things, and they won't be doing that. And also, even in private works, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you quoted me £1,000 for that, but, I think it's only worth 800, blah, blah, blah. A lot of tradesmen are not doing that anymore. They're just like, you either pay it up front or I'm not even looking at you. And yes, I know people are like, oh, but then I got conned by a builder. Yeah. Imagine the builder that's done your £10,000 worth of work and you've got a little scratch on your kitchen floor. You and your boys are waiting for their wages. And this person's like, I'm not paying you the 10,000, you haven't fixed this tear in my vinyl. And you're like, actually, that was your high heel that did that, not me. But pay the 10,000, we'll come back and do any snagging you want. No, I want it all done before I pay you a penny. Word goes round. If you're in a local area and you've done that, nobody's going to want to work for you. Then you are going to take the chance of having to bring in someone from an outside area without knowing if they are a cowboy or not. So yeah, that's my thing. My thing is, this is going to be quite a challenging time coming up, because There's so much legality, especially around gas, around electricity, so much so that in England they have now started this domestic installer who can seemingly rewire your whole house, but all they had to do was a wee college course. Now, when they started that, because Patrick was up in arms, when they started it, I went and looked at that course, and it was 6 weeks college course. I'm really good at learning things, but trust me, you don't want me rewiring your house, but I'm really good at passing college courses. That's what they've started doing down in England, so that they don't have to use a fully qualified electrician for certain works, basically because there's not enough of them. I leave you with that thought. If you are having electrical work done in England, I would certainly be asking for a fully qualified electrician, not a domestic installer. Right, now that I've ranted about that, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea, and I'll catch you later.